Time for another story. I thought I'd read to you today another story that I wrote a little while ago. I hope you enjoy it. The story is called The Imaginary Friend. When Tom was very young, his parents weren't concerned about his imaginary friend. From the age of about 2.5, when he was starting to put together quite complex sentences, Tom would always chatter at night in his bedroom. When he was playing with his blocks or his Play-Doh or dressing and undressing his teddy bear, Ralph, Tom would hold intense conversations. Sometimes his parents would think he was talking to Ralph, but it soon became apparent that he wasn't. "We should put a jumper on Ralph," he might say, or "No, that will make him too hot." Mr. and Mrs. Elwood never directly confronted Tom about this. It was cute. He would grow out of it when he had some real friends. Tom was a little frightened at night time, alone in his room, even with the door wedged open and the night light on. It comforted him to know that Foo-Foo was there to keep him company. He couldn't remember when he first became aware of Foo-Foo or how he learned his name. It was easy to express his feelings and ideas to Foo-Foo. He always understood. It was frustrating sometimes that his mummy and daddy couldn't understand what he was saying. There was never that problem with Foo-Foo. Having someone beside him at night, having someone to protect him from whatever lived in the darkness, having someone who could understand him. Foo-Foo was all these things to Tom. When Tom started at daycare and later at preschool, Foo-Foo went with him. He would often talk with Foo-Foo, tucked away in a corner, rather than to the other children. He would turn to Foo-Foo when he sensed the disapproval of others, particularly the adults. Foo-Foo never judged him. His parents were becoming a little concerned. "He'll grow out of it," they were assured. "It's harmless," confirmed their priest. "I can't remember having an invisible, imaginary friend like that. Can you, Emma?" Mr. Elwood asked his wife. "No," she said, "but apparently it's quite common. Maybe it's something we forget when we grow older." However, once Tom started school, they had reason to worry. Sometimes Tom didn't listen to the teachers. "He's off somewhere else," the teachers would say on parent-teacher nights. One day, when Tom was 6 years old, he stole a candy bar from the supermarket shelf. Foo-Foo was hungry, he explained to his distraught parents. So they talked to Tom then. They took him to see the priest. They took him to counselling. Tom wasn't silly. Tom knew that Foo-Foo wasn't there the way other people were there. It was just that sometimes the real world and real people were too difficult to deal with. So he would turn to Foo-Foo. Lately, though, he hadn't been scared of a night time. He was beginning to learn how to deal with the people and the tasks around him, and Foo-Foo came to him less and less often. Even when he stole the candy bar, he knew deep down, indeed not so very deep down, that he was the one who wanted it, not Foo-Foo. For a while longer, Foo-Foo was handy to have around. His imaginary friend brought him some attention. He provided him with an excuse from time to time, but pretty soon football and video games drew his focus away from Foo-Foo. He began to forget him. His parents were pleased to see him at the video game console or on the football field, rather than talking quietly in a corner to someone who wasn't there. Tom began the sometimes exciting, sometimes terrifying process of growing up and dealing with the real world around him. It was about 2 years later when Tom, who would have been 8 or 9 years old, thought about Foo-Foo during the Easter service. He wasn't sure why he thought of him then. The memory amused and embarrassed him a little. As he was walking home with his parents after the service, he raised the matter of Foo-Foo with them. "Do you remember," he said, "my imaginary friend Foo-Foo?" Mr. and Mrs. Elwood shared a look and laughed a little nervously. What would they do if Foo-Foo returned? "Yes, Tom, we remember." He laughed at their worried expressions. "It's okay. He's not back or anything. He was a bit silly, I know." "Not silly," Tom assured his mother. "It was just something you needed as a child, I guess. Yeah, I used to be real scared sometimes, and lonely. We all are sometimes. His father laid a hand on his shoulder. But you grew out of it. Yeah. Tom thought for a while. He wasn't really sure how to raise the next subject, how to ask the next question. It had been on his mind during the service. Dad? What is it, Tom? I was wondering, why do you and Mum and Father O'Farrell... Struggling, he decided to try a different tack. Dad, Mum, I don't think I want to come to church anymore. Oh, Tom, why not? Mrs. Elwood glanced again at her husband, perhaps wishing that he would deal with this one. Well, Mum, you and Dad and Father O'Farrell, you might need God, I guess, but I don't. I don't think I need an imaginary friend any more at all.